So I'm very pleased to be talking with all of you here today about cash-only practices, cash-friendly practices, which I'll describe for you in just a second. And I'm honored to have been invited to talk with you about this. I'm trying to represent here the perspective of the patients that you, as a cash-only or cash-friendly practice, would be trying to get into your practice. As Dave mentioned in his book, I'm the author of or in the introduction, I'm the author of The Self-Pay Patient, and run a blog by the same name, selfpaypatient.com. And the focus of both the book and the blog is how individuals can find affordable health care by paying directly and escaping from the insurance mechanism, what I call bureaucratic medicine. Basically, what I wrote about in the book, continue to write about on the blog, is the free market in healthcare that exists today. A lot of people, sort of the uninformed, will talk about how we have free market healthcare in America because the insurance companies make profits, and that's the free market, of course. I'll set aside my diatribe on that very dumb definition of free markets, but you know, the fact is we do have a free market in healthcare, and it is composed of cash-only practices. It's composed of facilities like Regency Health in New York. It's composed of places where patients can go and exchange value for value, to quote somebody who was up here earlier today. So I don't think I need to explain what a cash-only practice is or the benefits that would accrue to both you as doctors as well as to your patients if you were to go the cash-only route. But what I do want to talk about is the landscape for self-pay patients, for cash-only practices, what it looks like out there and what sort of patient base there might be and how you might be able to reach them and how you might be able to best serve them. First, I've got two basic definitions I want to get out of the way. Self-pay patient, obviously, is just anybody who is paying directly for their own care. That includes the uninsured, but it also includes people who have high deductible health plans. It also includes people who have very comprehensive health insurance with low deductibles, low copays, but for whatever reason, their insurance company is telling them that they have to go to a certain doctor, not the doctor that they want to go to, or their insurance company is not going to cover a particular procedure. And so these people with more comprehensive coverage are also going to wind up potentially as self-pay patients. The cash-friendly, cash-friendly practices is similar to a cash-only practice, but it is, they are practices who still take some insurance, maybe even Medicare, but they are able to, when a patient is in front of them or calls them on the phone, they're able to answer a very simple but important question that a self-pay patient is going to have. How much does that cost? As you know, maybe in your practice today, that can be a very challenging question for an awful lot of physicians to answer. So what I tell people is if you can't answer that question in maybe a couple of minutes that it might take to look at your price sheet, if you can't answer the question, how much does that cost, you aren't a cash-friendly practice. It's pretty simple. So how many self-pay patients are there now, and how many are there potentially going to be in the future? Well, it's hard to nail down an exact number, but let me give you a couple of things to think about. According to the Congressional Budget Office, even after Obamacare is fully implemented, there are going to be at least 30 million uninsured people. If you're like me, you're a skeptic of Obamacare, you might think that that number is going to be higher. I'm personally pegging it between 40 and 50 million for the number of uninsured. But minimum, I think, 30 million uninsured. All of these people, pretty much by definition, are going to be self-pay patients when they seek medical care. The next number that I want to mention is the people who are buying insurance policies through the Obamacare health exchanges. Most of these people are buying policies that have deductibles ranging from about $2,000 to $6,000. Because of that, for the majority of the care that they seek, they're going to be self-pay. That includes a lot of treatments that people are going to wind up getting in the emergency room. Pretty much any routine treatment that they receive, they're going to be self-pay and looking to have to come up with the money to pay for that. Hard numbers are hard to come by, but I would guess maybe 10 to 15 million Americans are going to be in that category of self-pay patient. At the same time, you have employer-provided health insurance. And the trend over at least the last decade has been for deductibles to continue to go up. The Kaiser Family Foundation did a study in 2013. They found that 38% of the plans offered by employers had a deductible of $1,000 or more. When they looked specifically at smaller employers, those with less than 200 employees, they found that 58% had a deductible of over $1,000, and they found that 31% had a deductible of greater than $2,000. These people are also going to be your self-pay patients. You add to them the number of people that are going to be going out of network because of the restrictive, the narrow networks. You add that to that the number of people who are going to be told by their doctor, I think you should have this procedure, and are then told by their insurance company, no, we're not going to cover that. I think you can count on several million more. So it looks to me like there's probably going to be between at least 60, maybe up to 100 million people who are going to be, in one way, shape, or form, self-pay for the majority of their health care. Now, most of these people are not going to be beating a path to your door. The majority of them, I suspect, are just going to grin and bear it with the current system. They're going to go to their doctor, they're going to pay their $50 copay, they're going to wait a month or two, they're going to get their explanation of benefits in which their insurer says, sorry, it's under the deductible, you still owe the doctor. They're going to write the check, send it in. They're not going to be happy about it because they're paying $200, $300, $400 a month for an insurance policy that really provides them very little value, but they're going to just, deal with it, basically. That said, there is also going to be a sizable minority, I think, certainly numbering in the millions, potentially numbering in the tens of millions, that aren't going to put up with it, or at least they're not going to put up with it for very long. They're going to hear about cash-only doctors. They're going to hear about real prices offered by surgery centers. They're going to hear about alternative ways and the savings that they can achieve when they simply pay directly for their health care. So the question then becomes, how do you let these people know about your practice? Because obviously you need them to come in your front door so that you can have a viable practice. Well, I will tell you that on my blog, through my Twitter feed, through Facebook, just conversations I have with people, the number one question that I get is, how do I find a cash-only doctor? So I'm going to tell you what I tell them, because I think that's going to provide some insights in how you can market your practice to these individuals. The first thing that I recommend is simply let your local media know about it. I think everybody here in this room understands that cash only, at least certainly in the primary care world, is really how things were up until about 30 or 40 years ago. But to the news media, cash only is something new and innovative and outside the box, and they want to report on these sorts of weird medical practices where people actually pay directly for their health care. So simply by notifying your local media that you're opening up one of these new and innovative practices, you can get media coverage that will allow people to know that you've opened. I can tell you that the majority of the practices that I feature on my blog or that I tweet out or put up on Facebook, I find through media coverage. The very first doctor's office that I put up on my blog that was cash only, Dr. Michael Ciampi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Minnesota, in Maine, he notified his local media, said, hey, I'm doing cash only. The Bangor Daily News came down, did a feature story. I found it. I put it up on the blog. The number one thing that I tell people looking for cash-only doctors is just Google your location, Minneapolis cash-only doctor, see what comes up. The second thing I recommend is that you make sure that you're in the online listings maintained by AAPS and simplecare.com as well. If you are a direct primary care practice, there are listings on let's see, the Direct Primary Care Coalition website, as well as the Academy of Private Physicians. And those will allow people to find you as well. Third, there are websites out there that in a variety of ways offer platforms for you to put your prices out there and let people know the services that you offer. A couple of them that I would encourage you to look at are pricepain.com, mdsave.com, clearhealthcosts.com, and also doccost.com. And I would point out that Miss Elisa Lesueur, I hope I pronounced that correct, from DocCost is actually at the back of the room, so I'd encourage you to talk with her as well. And fourth, please let me know. I love to feature cash-only practices on my blog. Right now, I'm getting between my blog, my Twitter feed, my Facebook, I've got about 15 to 20,000 viewers, readers, and followers. So there are a lot of people out there that are looking for you that I'd be happy to promote your practices on my site. The one thing that I want to close with is that I hope that not only will you consider yourself to be a physician treating these cash-only self-pay patients, but that you'll also consider yourself a resource for them as they attempt to navigate through the free market in healthcare. And what I mean by that is that you should be familiar with things like metabid.com or medical tourism in general. You should be familiar with the $4 generics that Walmart sells. You should be able to recommend to your patients that are uninsured that maybe they might want to look at an alternative to conventional insurance, like membership in a healthcare sharing ministry or a fixed benefits plan. How you choose to be a resource to your patients, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can simply have a sheet printed up that has the website addresses of my blog, the blog of Nurse Michelle Katz, Frugal Nurse is another good one, that provide information to self-pay patients. You can recommend that they buy my book. I don't think I have to apologize for being a capitalist in this room, but there is a doctor in Pennsylvania that it's her intention to buy a caseload of my book and just hand it out to patients, because it does provide a very good manual, basically, for navigating through the free market in healthcare. The reason it's important, I think, for you to be a resource for your patients is that without your being able to direct your patients outside of your practice for those treatments that you can't provide. You're not a surgeon maybe, and your patient needs surgery. If you're not able to direct your patients outside of your practice to people who cater to self-pay patients, then they're going to come to the conclusion that while they can get affordable health care for their primary care in your practice, they can't get it for the other stuff that they need, for their medicines, for surgery, for lab tests. And so they're not going to remain a self-pay patient for very long. They're going to leave your practice because they're going to become convinced that they can only get the other health care that they need by going back into the system of bureaucratic medicine. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. I'm going to be around, be happy to talk with any of you afterwards. And I guess I'll go ahead and bring Daniel up now.